Everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from Townhall.com from February 26th. And it says, this insider account of New York Times leftist insanity is something else. And I thought this was hilarious when I saw it. And I was on vacation when this all happened, so I've only had an opportunity to record it. I'm recording it about a week after this article is dated here. But I just thought it'd be funny to talk about because if you want to know how much of a clown shoes the New York Times is, I'm not cutting that out, this should exemplify that for you quite easily. So it says, in terms of the woke inmates running the asylum, the New York Times has been a notable example of what goes wrong when far-left orthodoxy takes over once reputable institutions. The nonsense revealed by Barry Weiss in a resignation letter from the Gray Lady confirmed what many observers assumed was true. And I wonder, is that an actual link to her letter? It's actually her website. And if you don't know who Barry Weiss is, she used to work for the New York Times, and she's kind of a center-left personality, but she talks about all the discrimination that happens there. And yeah, I read the letter when it came out. This is probably like at least a year ago, if not longer. But yeah, go read it because that's another thing that'll show you how much of a clown shoes the New York Times is. So continuing on, says, the newsroom revolt over the publication of an op-ed from a sitting U.S. senator put an exclamation point on the lunacy that had taken hold. Now, thanks to former New York Times opinion staffers Adam Rubenstein, who edited Senator Tom Cotton's op-ed responding to leftist BLM riots during the mostly peaceful, in scare quotes, summer of 2020, we have a new anecdote that shows the HR culture at the Times is even more absurd than a satire writer could concoct, and another inside account on the insane reaction of publishing Cotton's quite mainstream opinion on the riots destroying American cities and livelihoods. Yeah, if you remember Tom Cotton, I wonder if I haven't actually read this article yet. I just saw the headline and I was like, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. But if you don't remember what Senator Cotton wrote about the riots, it was just that we need to send in the National Guard to stop them. That was basically it. And I can guarantee you millions of people in this country share that opinion. I was one of them. I'm actually raising my hand now. I know you can't see me doing that, but I very much agreed with doing that because how else were you going to stop them? And of course they didn't do that. And there's billions of dollars of damage and dozens of people were murdered. So yeah. There you go. So, in the New York Times, then they ended up firing people over this and not running his column, if I remember correctly, all because he just basically said, we need to stop the violent people from doing violence. Yeah, I know. That's real bad. We shouldn't do that. Anyway, it says in an essay for The Atlantic, Rubenstein explains how he realized almost straight out of the gate after being hired at the Times in 2019, things were not going in a sane direction. So this is where it gets funny. It says, on one of my first days at the New York Times, and by the way, there is a Twitter feed that he put out about this where you can see all this. So I went to an orientation with more than a dozen other new hires. We had to do an icebreaker, pick a Starburst out of a jar, and then answer a question. My Starburst was pink, I believe, and so I had to answer the pink prompt, which had me respond with my favorite sandwich. Okay, so what do you think he said his favorite sandwich was? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that while we continue on with the article. It says, this exercise, while the stuff of grown-worthy and often dreaded HR team-building ventures, doesn't seem problematic on its face, but Rubenstein quickly found it to be something of a trap. So back to his quote, he said, Russ and Daughter's Super Heapster came to mind. I don't know what that is, but sounds interesting. But I figured mentioning a $19 sandwich wasn't a great way to win new friends. Probably not, but this is back in 2019, so if I was to mention it today, that sandwich probably costs like $25, $30. Even if it costs $19 still, people probably be like, yeah, it's what everything costs these days. So he says he blurted out the spicy chicken sandwich from ChickFilA and considered the ice broken, which is an awesome sandwich, by the way. It's pretty much the only thing I get from there. But yeah, that is a great sandwich. So excellent choice, I'd have to say. So perhaps overthought, but points to Rubenstein for engaging in good faith with his new colleagues. Unfortunately, what he believed to be honest participation immediately backfired. Now, I want you folks to think about, before even looking at the screen, why would somebody at the New York Times have a problem with him saying the spicy chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A? If your answer was something about Chick-fil-A, you'd be 100% correct. So back to his quote. It says, the HR representative leading the orientation chided me. We don't do that here. They hate gay people, which, by the way, is not true. It says, people started snapping their fingers in acclamation. And the snapping fingers thing, for people that don't know, is the leftist thing instead of clapping, because they think that clapping is like what is it? The people that have the disabilities, like with auditory issues, like they're sensitive to it, so they don't want you clapping, so they snap their fingers instead. It's a very leftist thing only in leftist places that they actually do. Okay, and even if you were clapping for that, like, what? Okay, so this HR person also doesn't seem to know what the hell they're talking about. So back to his quote, he said, "I hadn't been thinking about the fact that Chick-fil-A was transgressive in liberal circles for its chairman's opposition to gay marriage. Now, because the chairman has an opposition to gay marriage, it doesn't mean the entire company doesn't like gay people. That's just a complete mischaracterization, but I think they know that. But these are people on the left, so you can't expect them to understand simple concepts a lot of the times, especially about stuff like this." So back to the quote, it says, "Not the politics, the chicken," I quickly said, but it was too late. I sat down, ashamed, end quote. So it says, the article says, "With that display of outlandish leftist ideological intolerance as a starting note, it's so unsurprising that the intellectual inmates at the Times lost the plot, jumped the shark, etc., when the paper ran Cotton's op-ed. As Guy rightly noted," and that's going to be Guy Benson down below, says, "These anecdotes are more outlandish than what a professional satirist could make up." And he says, "Generally beyond satire." And this embedded tweet here is essentially what the quotes were before, so we don't need to go over it again. And the Adam Rubenstein quote continues to say, and here's an embedded tweet from the man himself, and his whole article, I should say. "It was clear to me then, and it's clear to me now, that the fight over Khan's op-ed was never about safety, or the facts, or the editing, or even the argument, but control of the paper and who had it." Rubenstein's worth the read essay concludes, and that's going to be what I believe this is here in this embedded tweet. It says, "In the end, all that mattered was an example had been made." Yep. And that's the end of the article. So think about this at the New York Times, that people were so offended. He said his favorite sandwich was just a Chick-fil-A spicy chicken sandwich, and these people essentially like had a semi-meltdown over it. Okay, I mean, it's about as weak-minded as you could possibly be, but are you surprised it's coming from the New York Times? Because I certainly am not. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite sandwich is, too. Maybe it's something I could go try. You never know. Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.